Today we're discussing the Trojan War, an epic conflict that inspired many mythological tales, including Homer's The Odyssey. What do you know about the Trojan War? The first thing that probably comes to mind is the Trojan horse. It's such a silly idea. No way it would work today. If it were me in there, the Greeks would have lost. No way I'm not laughing at my homie. It looks at me like... Anyways, today you will learn much more about the war and how it inspired other epic poems. Welcome to the early 12th century BC. The city of Troy was a big talk of town. Here we also have the neighboring Sparta and Athens.
Oh, it's no fair. Poseidon and Apollo built those big walls for you. Suck it, our walls will never fall.
Let's take a look at who's on each side. Over in Troy we have the royal family, consisting of Priam and Hecuba, and their children Hector, who was a great warrior, and Paris, who had to leave his family as Hecuba received a prophecy that he would someday lead to Troy's downfall. Sounds oddly familiar. Almost like I've heard this story before. Oedipus. Over in Sparta we have Queen Helen and King Menelaus. One bright sunny day, on Mount Olympus, a huge wedding was taking place. Every god was invited, except for one, Eris, the god of strife and discord.
Can I come, pretty please?
No, we know your schemes. We do not like you.
Fine, I guess I'll scheme anyways.
She brings a golden apple and proclaims that it shall be given to the most beautiful goddess. Since they cannot decide who to give it to, the gods consult Paris. The goddesses each offer Paris a reward if he is to give it to them. Paris gives the apple to Aphrodite and as she promised Paris that she could secure a marriage with Helen, the queen of Sparta. Paris goes to Sparta and says,
Hey hot stuff, why don't you ditch that dork husband of yours and come with me?
Okay.
And so, Paris returns to Troy with his new girl. When Menelaus returns, he learns of his wife, and he gets real mad. He summons the Greeks, and wages war on Troy instantly. The Greeks, or also known as the Achaeans, consisted of Agamemnon, Menelaus, Odysseus, and Nestor, as well as Achilles, who was baptized in the rivers of the underworld, and immortalized except for his heel. Almost feels like a video game boss, with only one vulnerable spot. Agamemnon is ready to command the thousands of Greek soldiers. He orders them to set sail for Troy.
But sire, we have no wind for our sails on our boats.
Who could have stolen our wind?
Said Agamemnon.
It was me.
Said the god Artemis. So Agamemnon responds like any rational person would, by sacrificing his daughter, Iphigenia. And Artemis was like,
Wow, that was pretty badass. Here, have some wind.
The Greeks prepare to attack Troy, who has assembled its greatest warriors. Meanwhile, the gods are eating popcorn and placing bets on who will win. Hera, Athena, and Poseidon side with the Achaeans, while Aphrodite, Apollo, and Ares side with the Trojans. Fast forward a mere 9 years, and the Greeks still cannot get past the walls of Troy. It hadn't occurred to them in that whole 9 years that they could try a different strategy other than attacking the wall head on. So they travel on land, pillaging cities and taking in women as they go. They pick up Chryses and Brises, who are claimed by Agamemnon and Achilles respectfully. However, Agamemnon is a bad boyfriend and makes fun of his new girl. This deeply upsets Apollo, who fires arrows at this Greek army until he gives up Chryses. Agamemnon starts raging, he is mad, and he steals Brises from Achilles.
Agamemnon, what gives, man? You can't just take her, come on, bro.
Yeah, I can.
Okay, well, I won't fight for you then.
Okay.
The war goes on, and an epic duel between Menelaus and Paris takes place. Menelaus takes the dub, but Paris pulls up his cheat menu and summons Aphrodite to take him to safety. However, Helen loses feelings for Paris after he got clapped in the 1v1. The Trojans are beating the Greeks badly. Achilles still is not fighting until his best friend tries to cosplay as him. Hector takes a stand and fights the Achilles cosplayer, killing him in one shot. Hector is confused at first, but then he realizes that it's just a doppelganger.
You're not him. Sit down, bro.
Achilles now is angered and wants to kill Hector and defeat Troy. Hector and Achilles eventually end up 1v1ing, and Achilles takes the dub. Troy mourns for Hector's death. As the war continues, Achilles is tearing it up on the battlefield. However, Paris shoots Achilles in the heel with a poison arrow, eventually killing him. Without Achilles, the Greeks are at a loss as to what to do. Odysseus, being the scheming individual he is, as we've seen in the Odyssey, gives a great idea.
Guys, what if we build a giant wooden horse?
The Greeks put warriors inside the giant horse and leave it outside the Troy wall, as they pretend to retreat home. The Trojans naively take the horse in, as anybody would. I mean, if you saw a giant horse sitting outside your home, of course you'd take that bad boy in. No second thoughts. At night, the warriors leave the horse and they open the gates of Troy. This results in the Greeks taking over the city and killing pretty much everyone, ending the war with a Greek victory. In the aftermath of the war, Agamemnon returns home, but he's eventually killed by his wife, who still did not get over him sacrificing his daughter. Aeneas ends up escaping Troy, and he begins anew. And lastly, Odysseus tries to return home, but I mean, we all know how that goes. The Odyssey. And yeah, that's my analysis of the Trojan War. I'm just gonna wrap up with some commentary here. So I first came up with this idea when reading the Odyssey. Throughout the book, the Trojan War is mentioned several times, and it seemed like such a large event that contextualized the whole story. And when thinking about what I knew about the war, I could only really think of the Trojan horse, which was kind of silly, and it led me to want to know more, and thus I settled on the idea of making a video essay research project. So I first started searching for some primary sources. I first came across the Cypria, however it's in many fragments and not a complete book. I also came across the Iliad by Homer, which depicts the ends of the Trojan War. And lastly, Agamemnon and Aeneid both tell the tales of what happened after the war. Then I began writing the script using information from these sources, split the analysis into 3 portions: the beginning or causes of the war, essentially the context, and then the war itself, and then some of the after effects. The major difficulty was definitely using the primary sources and getting the information that I needed out of them. I also consulted a non-primary source. The book Troy by Stephen Fry gives a pretty good summary of the Trojan War, and I use that to help me with my outline. And then for future development on this project, I would probably polish the video a lot more, and maybe add another section detailing some of the archaeological evidence for Troy and the war existence.